What is it with Nico and the Vacheron 4073? You know, I've been trying to figure that out myself. So probably my most popular watch, definitely for this past summer and maybe to date. That is the Vacheron and Constantine reference 4073 in two-tone steel and pink gold. Now, you might have seen me featuring the same case metal, another 4073 in steel and pink gold, and that one is mine, but I was able to, luckily, very blessed, find another one. You know, and that to me is the pinnacle, the Grail of the 4073. If that Patek, you know, that I sold was the Grail 96, this would be Vacheron's version. And I mentioned them together, and I've said it before, but I'll say it again. There's many similarities. I find the comparison to be extremely valid. So to start off, you have, you know, different case makers for precious metal and steel and even two-tone variants on Vacheron's side. Same thing with, you know, Patek on the 96 side. But in terms of precious metal cases made by the same, you know, case manufacturer, Antoine Grillot, who, you know, I adore his designs and I find them to be absolutely timeless. In terms of wristwatch, round wristwatch design, and he created both precious metal cases for the 96 and the 4073. Not that they're, you know, exactly alike, but they look pretty darn similar. You know, to date, I found 5 or 6 examples. I have to go back to my references to check, but I think I've identified at least 5 and maybe 6 examples of this to date. And you know, that's not to say that there were only 6 made. We just know of 6 right now at this time period. I would venture to say probably less than 20 were made. One of which that I've told you resides in my personal collection, the other of which I know resides in a gentleman's personal collection in Portugal. At one point they were owned by the same person, and then this third one that I was able to find and curate for our vintage watch shop. Now, the earliest documentation that I can find for this specific example was a public sale that took place in Antiquorum back in 2004 in an auction called Timeless Beauty Spectacular Wristwatches. And it really highlights that although the case metals are the same between the two-tone variants that we've seen, it doesn't necessarily translate to the dial. You know, this dial is very different than the one that I own. The one that I own is an enamel dial that's been incised, where this has enameling but it was not incised. And if you look at the outer sub-seconds track, it almost has this gilt technique. It's obviously not a gilt dial, but I would venture to say that there was some type of galvanizing that took place. It doesn't have like a recessed look showing the bare metal, but I would say that the dial itself during that portion was probably applied with some type of product that didn't allow for the rest of the lacquer to go on, or if it did, it was able to be washed away with that technique, then revealing like the dial itself. And it really gives it like this reflective feature or aesthetic, you know, especially when you're playing with it in the light. And you know, I think rightfully so. It was an absolutely amazing example to hold on the wrist, and it ended up going to a good friend of mine and really great collector, and hopefully it'll remain in his collection for a long time. But if not, you know where it's coming back.